Good evening, everyone, and very warm welcome to this festive edition of the Live Lounge. It is Monday. It is 8 p.m. We've all got our Christmas jumpers on. Myself, Bill Bars, Jack Gobby Garwood, and Lee Boyce are going to keep you entertained for the next few hours, looking back on what an absolute belter of a year 2021 was. Gentlemen, good evening. How are we?
Oi!
All good. Yeah, all good. I prefer the intro of keeping entertaining instead of talking nonsense, Phil. Certainly prefer that one.
We'll talk a bit of that as well.
We've evolved through the yearly. That's what it is. He trusts us now.
I know. We'll still talk some nonsense.
We just won't tell everybody that's what it is anymore. They don't know that already. It's their own fault.
Yeah. When Gob tries to tell me Gary Anderson gets to the World Final again.
Oh, Gary!
But welcome along, everyone.
Stick one of our YouTube comments earlier for not mentioning Gary Anderson as a potential. It wasn't even us. I think it was on Chris Mason's interview. He was like, "What on earth? Why is nobody talking up Gary? As if we're just going to talk up all 128 players in the field every single time we open our mouths."
And plus, without being horrible, to be talked about to win the world, you've got to actually do something. Did I say that out loud?
Not had the best
2 minutes
year.
past 8, gentlemen. It's 2 minutes past 8. Calm down.
What are we doing right there? We're literally about to do a review of the year, and the point we're making is Gary Anderson has not had a very good year.
Exactly. But welcome along in the chat room. Loads of you already in, which is absolutely amazing because sadly, this will be the last Live Lounge of 2021. Bring a tear to our eyes, boys. It's going to bring the curtain down on the year.
You say a tear, we say a massive cheer that we get our Mondays back.
we don't really, do we?
Do we? Full out bars on every Monday.
Of course, we have the question in the chat room: who has been the best player in 2021? It is up there, and at the moment, the right man is winning. So there, remember, make sure you drop us a like and come and say hello, and also a massive thank you for getting us past 18k. Next up, boys, is the big 20k mark.
Is it? I mean, when I went to school, 19 was in between 18 and 20, but we'll take 20.
Now, that's not a big mark.
To stall?
I'm smart as anything, mate. I was a goody little two shoes.
Not that
because you two got 3 GCSEs between you.
But welcome along, everyone. So when's the first lounge of 2022? We were talking about that earlier. I think we're penciling in the 10th. I think. After the WDF Worlds.
Second day of Q-Stall? Yeah, second day.
The first one is going to be my birthday by the looks of it.
Is it?
The 17th.
For those that are asking as well, not deliberately blocked it off. There it is. It's just where I'm sat. Monday the 4th, Tommy, is going to be tough because Lakeside's on, and we're going to be covering that as well. So leave it with us. We'll work something out when the first live lounge of
the 4th is also Tuesday.
What's that?
The 4th is also a Tuesday.
I was just reading what was on there. That was all. Yeah, it is. That's media afterwards. Yeah.
Very likely 17th. We'll confirm closer to the date.
Also, loads of thank you very much. Loads of interviews over on our YouTube channel. We've still got another 1, 2, 3 to drop before the World starts?
Three, is it?
Yeah.
John Parr, MVG, and tomorrow
John Parr.
I've got to sit down with Matt Porter before the World starts as well. So I get to go to Ali Pali a day early and see what it's like.
You show off.
But yeah, because like you say, come and say hello in the chat room as well. It's the festive edition. It's the last one, but we're going to look back at 2021, boys, and it's a year that hasn't disappointed, has it?
I mean, James Wade's
No.
only won one TV title, but other than that, it's been okay, bearable.
That's been the unbearable bit.
Something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
so the year got better after Wade had won his, moved over to the final. The year got better from March onwards. Phil.
Yeah. Evening, Paddy Rose is in as well. Daniel, I'm only about an hour and a half from Ali Pali, so it's all good. But I'm going to include this one in because this kicked off 2021, one of the most iconic pictures we've seen in the year, the way it was all lit. The Iceman, Gerwin Price, was the champion, returned the trophy, starts his defence, boys. How would you rate his year as champion before we look at it?
Crap. Not crap. Underwhelming, I think. When you're the world champion, you've done what you've done to get there. He's bullied people on the hockey. He's said enough off the hockey. He has worked his ass off to make the transition from a rugby player to the best player in the world. Unfortunate at times with COVID, etc. Missing the Premier League, obviously not ideal. But despite all that, quite disappointing, I think, that he only has the Grand Slam to show for it.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
Especially in a year where Peter Wright was excellent at one tournament, maybe two. Other than that, been a bit up and down. Michael van Gerwen has not won a televised ranking event. Your two biggest rivals for the last 3 years have massively underperformed themselves through 95% of this year, maybe a little bit less if you take into account Wright's success. And you've come away with one trophy that you've held twice already.
Yeah, no, TJ, I'm with Gob. For how good Price is, I don't think he's won enough.
Yeah,
I think he's a better player than that one trophy.
Yeah, I have to agree as well. And I think Price himself would be disappointed if after the Worlds, if someone says this year will pan out and you'll only pick up the Slam, I don't think he would be too happy with that. It's not a poor year by any stretch of the imagination. However, it's underwhelming. It's not what we probably expect after he went on and won the World Championship and won it convincingly, really, in that final. The top sitting in that final was ridiculous, and the performance throughout that. Expected him to probably push on and win more. It's not a bad year, is it? Let's be honest. He's still picking up Grand Slam. But for someone of Price's level, it probably is looked at as underwhelming.
TJ, absolutely. MVG has had a trash year. 100%.
And I hate to say it, but I 100% said that was happening in January and February last year. I started calling that decline way before this year even happened, but I 100% said that when we had the look ahead to the year discussion at the start, nearly 11 months ago.
I still think that he potentially ends up winning the biggest one, but we'll come on to that later on. So, from there, the first TV tournament in the proper calendar, because although the World Championship falls in 2021, it started in 2020. this one. This tournament, boys, arguably changed the whole destiny of the complete year and one man's career. Because until they announced the changes, Johnny Clayton was not in the Masters. Fast forward, he wins it, gets himself a Premier League place, and as they say, the rest is history, Boise.
Yeah, I think a lot of the talk about Johnny Clayton the year he's had has come back to the World Cup, the back end of 2020. However, that gave him the confidence to push on and win the Masters, which was all of his own thought. And then, as we've seen, and we'll talk about each tournament that he's then picked up since, and why he's, I'm guessing he's still, 69% currently of the poll of being the player of the year. And it was because of this tournament, and it's all come around from, obviously, there was talk about how important this tournament would be for the Premier League, but until the final panned out as it did with Clayton playing Mervyn King, it certainly put a lot on it, and it added that extra to the Masters as well, which made it, I don't want to say that it's irrelevant normally, however, it made it more relevant than what it is, shall we say.
Oh, don't worry, there's an interview coming out tomorrow
It made it relevant.
The amount of money that's in these tournaments, it's not irrelevant. It's probably...
It's unranked.
A warm-up. It's
unranked. It makes the top 16 players come back from their holidays earlier, and it's a chance for them to try new equipment in front of TV cameras. It's irrelevant unless there's something to play for.
It's relevant to the Premier League players in preparation. Normal year, not this year, not 2020, but in a normal year, it's relevant in regards to preparation. But there's one thing mentioned there as well, Dob, is the change in the Masters. We haven't mentioned of moving from 16 to 24, which was, for me, was a very good move. And I believe it's continuing next year. Is that confirmed?
Yeah, it's staying with 24, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the right thing to do. It'll be interesting to see if any relevance are on it regarding the Premier League or their picks beforehand.
You say it has, but there's an interview coming out tomorrow that still doesn't think the Masters has any relevance, but we'll come on to that tomorrow.
You can only be one people, but one's already in the bag.
Ask Johnny Clayton if it's a relevant tournament of that, and it'll be a different answer to tomorrow.
But like we said, it's interesting that the Masters, that they took the decision between the break to make it a shootout for that Premier League place as well, and it did add that extra spice. Sadly, I don't think that spice is going to be there this year.
No, I don't think so. Look, that was a decision made on the fly for the Invitational that it is, and it worked out pretty well. There have been a lot of decisions made this year and a lot of key moments in the PDC, and we have given them praise and we have battered them from pillar to post when we haven't agreed. And this was one of those instances where they got it spot on. They left that last spot open. Nobody had really done enough to claim it. The tournament was expanded. That had absolutely no significance on this. It wasn't done deliberately. It wasn't set up. They stumbled across it. A little bit fortunate, and that's the way the final went. Both players had a relatively good 2020 as well. Mervyn King made a couple of finals. Johnny Clayton was the World Cup champion with Gerwyn Price as well. So they had some sort of calibre from the season before. It wasn't just there on rankings that they'd accumulated through Pro Tours. Players were aware who they both were. They both have commercial draw to some extent, and they stumbled across that decision excellently. It made the Masters super relevant. We were talking about whoever wins the Masters potentially going in the Premier League. That was never confirmed before the first start was thrown. It was just the way that it panned out, but it worked out really well. And actually, it was a pretty nice start to the year, and plenty of conversations about how this year could have turned out if Johnny Clayton hadn't won it. Mervyn King 3 legs away from his first TV title in the PDC. Would that have made a massive difference to this year? No Johnny Clayton in the Premier League. Who knows?
Who knows indeed. And then, this is probably the low point of the year for me.
Move on.
James Wade winning the UK Open. Gob, and we'll let you do this one. But this was the one part of the season where he did actually play well. in fairness, look, since then, I don't think he's hit anywhere near those heights. But at this point, he was genuinely playing well.
Not to the back end of the slam. But yeah, this UK Open victory was superb for James Wade. He'd added an extra dimension to his scoring. His finishing was superb. At the same time, he'd started picking up Pro Tours, or at least contended on Pro Tours. Let me just check my notes. Doesn't win a Pro Tour till later on. Beaten in a final in March, so that's close enough to the date as it is. But he was chucking 100+ averages for fun in Pro Tours. We don't see that from James Wade. We see him chuck mid-90s, mid to high 90s, and with a good double percentage. He was tearing people apart with a newfound level of scoring power. Was superb at the UK Open all the way through. And actually, all right, we're going to go on to the Premier League next. So a little bit of a spoiler alert. When Gerwyn Price withdrew and James Wade was called up, he didn't go in as the 10th player and there to make the numbers up. He genuinely started that campaign, albeit without the preparation that he possibly would have wanted, as one of the favourites for the title. The first thing that happened when James Wade got called up was people were saying how close he could come to winning the Premier League after not being included in it 6 weeks before.
Yeah, no, agreed. He was certainly went there as a huge favourite, the form he was in. But, Boise, for me, it's interesting. Gob touched on there. His scoring power was another dimension. But since then, we've probably only seen it in one game since, that scoring power. It's literally like a switch. It was on, turned off. We saw it for one game against Rob Cross and flicked off again. Yeah,
spot on. But Wade, we spoke about Price sort of not having the year we did following it up from the Worlds. We've had a couple of others, I won't go into the winners, but a few of the other winners of tournaments this year who have gone on and won something. And then, Peter Wright being one of them, we haven't seen him perform to those levels for months. And the majority of that has been around the scoring power, just hasn't been the same. But as much as I don't really want to say it, I'm with Dob that it was fantastic from when he first came into the UK Open to the final, James Wade in this tournament. Huge shout out to Louis Humphries in this, that semi-final performance he put in against Michael van Derwen to them to the final, was very impressive. But then with Dob, there was signs then of James Wade that you looked at him being then in the Premier League, that maybe if it wasn't to win it, but at least get to the final or getting into them semi-finals. But I guess the good news of that happening PBs by James Wade winning the UK Open just before the Premier League, then diving his shot, means that Wade should miss out the Premier League next year. It's right, isn't he?
Unfortunately, he's still going to be in the top four. However, if you listen to Peter Manley,
the man's deserved it.
From a pure look, the business we do. Look, is James Wade a good player? Yes, not arguing that. But in our line of work, it is all about clicks, impressions, and views. He does no. 16 weeks of no.
The problem is that when he does something that from clicks and views, he drops an F-bomb in it and you can't put it out anymore.
That's the problem. It's either
he'd do it clicks and views,
or it can't go out. So for 16 weeks for us, is not good.
He's still going to drop us enough lines throughout and whatever else. Still quality. And he's earned it. We're no doubt going to have to do the Premier League later, which I have not prepared for in any way, shape or form. But
we told everyone we were going to give our 10, so you better get thinking, Gob. Evening, Jamie. Hope you are good. And then from there, again, a stagnated Premier League. It was done in sections, in blocks. The first, was it 3 or 4 were behind closed doors? And then the last one, we had some fans because Boise was raving it up.
Yeah,
I just know it went over April and May.
Yeah.
I think I'm just having to put that. 1, 2. It was a toss 4, yeah. So 3 with no fans, and then the fans came in for the final week. And as you are right, Mr. Bars, I was there for, I think, 4 of the 5.
Yeah.
For what was a very, very good, very good ending to the Premier League. It was it's a strange one. Hopefully, one that we never have again, where it was split out like the way it was. I understand why they did it the way it was, and made perfect sense at that time. However, for me, we want to see it back once a week on the Thursdays. You know, I'm not opposed to the odd Wednesday, Thursday overlap if they were to come back in, but for me, I didn't like how they were in 4 and 5s, but totally understandable on this why they've done it. But that week then to finally have fans back in, set it up nicely then for obviously down into the match play and the rest of the year. But for me, it was a very, very good Premier League from, I guess, when it first got announced and the names that were in there, and then with Derwin Price having to come out due to COVID. I wasn't looking forward to it as much, but from the end of it, I thought overall it was a very good Premier League.
Yeah, look, I thought the last phase when we had the fans back, although it was only 1,000 in there, 800 to 1,000 was it?
Yeah.
That
I think there was 1,000 Thursday, Friday, a few less earlier on in the week.
Yeah, that just made such a difference. It was unreal. From the for those that haven't been at Milton Keynes, the media area is up on the balcony, and we can obviously hear the crowd interaction, everything like that, and it just made such a difference because those halls are a lonely place with no one in there. You can put fake crowd noise in all you want, but for everyone involved and the players, it is a lonely place, and that made such a difference. I just remember that everyone was like, "Yeah, you've got to behave. It's not like normal just yet." Literally, second game in, and they're doing congas around the table. It's like, yeah, it's back.
Yeah, it was. Good.
Moving on to the actual Premier League darts itself, it was interesting because Johnny Clayton only just snuck in the back door to this, nicked the fourth spot off. Dimitri can consider himself extremely unlucky not to have made that top 4 gob.
Yeah, but it was sort of nip and tuck the entire way, wasn't it? We were at the point, I think, on that final night where 7 of the 8 players could still make that finals night. It was just insane, and I think that reflects the year better than anything else. When the top 8 players in the world, 10 players in the world, obviously we lost Dozer and Cross early, which we'll come back to in a minute. When they're taking points off each other and no one player is consistently putting the sword to each other, you look how comfortable Phill Taylor and Michael Van Gogh have made the Premier League look in previous years. When nobody is doing that, that shows you just how competitive this field is right now.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Evening, Craig. Hope you are well. Like we said, Glenn Durham, look, we all know what happened. Living in that goldfish bowl was just not great for him. And that showed. I thought Rob Cross played better than what the results suggested.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd say that. I'd say the same thing I've been saying since the Premier League and all throughout, and it's been the platform that's built up this strong second half of the year for Rob Cross that we'll talk about in a bit as well, is that it gave him a platform. Before the Premier League, Rob Cross had a massive range of performances. He had so many inconsistencies, and a lot of that was caused by his throw. He had so many loose darts. He tightened up on an awful lot of those over the Premier League. There was still the odd night where it got away from him a little bit, but in the pressure situations and everything else, his throw just became more consistent. It became repetitive again. It became solid, and he put himself somewhere between 90 and 95 most nights, which is solid, competitive, but it's not going to win you games in the Premier League because that's how competitive the Premier League is. So I'm not sure that he should have won more games or anything like that, but he built himself a platform for the rest of the year in front of TV cameras against the top players in the world, where he just gave himself a base level where Rob Cross is one of the only players in the world that can win a tournament with his B game. He produced his B game for 10 nights.
Yeah. And Jarlath, if you're going to throw stones in glass houses, my friend, at least get your facts correct.
Evening, Mr.
It started already. Well, it started already.
There was 4 defeats, 1 draw in there. Didn't lose 5 from 6. There was a draw in there, Mr. Eaton. So if you're going to line up catapults, at least get the aim correct.
Against James Wade, who already let it slip himself. It was just a crazy end to the Premier League.
But moving on to the final of the Premier League, Johnny Clayton edging out Michael Van Gogh in 10-8. And I think it was the last 3 legs from Johnny. Didn't he go something like 12, 13, 12 or something stupid like that? Yeah, I know it was literally an absolute blitz from Clayton at the end, just world-class arrows.
Yeah, there was, and going into that finals night, the favourite by quite a bit for me was MVG. How he performed, night 1 he struggled, if I remember right, and then the rest of the week we've seen MVG seem to get back to levels that we've seen before, and fully expected. And how Johnny Clayton then finished that game and went on to win that game, certainly set him up perfectly for the final. And it was that confidence that we'd seen from him winning the Masters, taking it into then that finals night and that very impressive win against MVG.
Yeah, and then second semi-final, Jose de Souza edged Nathan Aspinall in a last leg shootout goal to set up the final.
He didn't. It was quite a weird campaign for Jose. He started slowly. Another one that I think struggled to adapt to the conditions. He built himself a platform again throughout. He was competitive. There were a couple of nights where it just didn't happen for Jose. But there were plenty of nights where it did, and he was superb. And there was a lot of resistance, shall we say, to include Jose de Souza in the Premier League. And I think he stuck 2 fingers up at everybody that didn't want him there. Because the crowd love him.
If I speak.
Yeah, and
the crowd love him. Whether he's the most athletic player on TV is a completely different matter. Yes, he's getting older. The sport wants to push a new direction of younger players coming through that are perhaps fitter more generally and that sort of thing. But in terms of producing moments of quality, his scoring power and the crowd loving him, Jose de Souza is well up there in terms of marketability.
Yeah, I'll add to that. We talked about people with Premier League and being high scorers. Most 180s in a Premier League year was done by Jose. We saw him take out a threat out that meant Wayne Mardell lost his voice in the tops, the 3 tops. There was just bits of that.
The best result of the week, by the way. He had the night off the next day. Sorry, Wayne.
Yeah, but I think there was parts of that, and only for me, if you've got to the final in the Premier League, you should be in the following year. But we'll come to our Premier League picks later on. But there was entertainment. There's a lot of entertainment from Jose.
And then in the final, it was kind of one-way traffic. From kind of halfway, Jose never looked like getting near Johnny Clayton. 11-5. And the Ferret is the Premier League champion for 2021, boys. Major or TV title number 2 for the Ferret. Then we had to wait a little bit for the next TV one. We had a few Pro Tours in between. Peter Wright started running his lips, as he says. But this time, he went to Blackpool. And arguably, this is the best performance from anyone in a TV tournament across the whole year, boys. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. Wright was literally unplayable.
It was absolutely ridiculous. The only way to describe this performance from Peter Wright was it was Phill Taylor-esque. He was that dominant. He was that good. He was that brutal across the entire week. In Phil's den, by the way, in the match play, the scene of the crime almost, where Peter let Phill walk on in his final ever match play final first or second, whichever way around it was or whatever. And right imploded. He put that right on that stage. He was absolutely unbelievable all week. Literally one of the most dominant performances we've ever. Not just in a year, by the way. Not just the way that he won the. That's one of the best performances ever over a tournament, over a televised PDC major. That is one of the best performances ever, not just in 2021.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I don't.
Jar's comment. He was only behind once all tournament, the very first leg he played against Danny Noppert.
Yeah, look, he was unplayable. Yeah. But since then, the demons have come back. We've had tinkering galore. And he kind of went missing from here to the Players' Championships. We'll come on to that later on. But at this point in the year, we all genuinely thought Wright was going to go on a winning spree. Didn't quite happen though, Boise.
Yeah, because it was no surprise to see him play. No surprise to see him win it. Probably the level of performance was just ridiculous throughout the week. But because we'd seen him win some of the Pro Tour events, predominantly the last days, there was no surprise that he went on and lifted the trophy. It was just the manner that he did it. We expected him to push on and, lift up more trophies, similar to what we were saying about Derwin Price earlier. Because he was so dominant in all his games. For me, not as much the final, but that semi-final against MVG, it was just so good that we expected him to then push on. One of the other things from the match play, not only the fans returning that really stood out in Blackpool. Obviously, when we talked about the world champion, one of the moments in this one was his little dance against Dimitri that certainly springs to mind as I know it's one of Dobbs' highlights of the year, the dancing Derwin Price. Is it not, Dob?
I'll wait for another 20 minutes. I can swear it.
Evening, Mace is in the chat room. How was your head this morning, buddy? Mace said one of the most dominant performance since Taylor's days. One of them. The only one that I can think rivals it was MVG's 2017 Worlds, when he averaged, was it high 106s for the tournament? But yeah, it's certainly up there without a shadow of a doubt. And at that point, Peter Wright was absolutely flying. Then from there, we had Gob's favourite tournament, the World Cup of Darts, and Scotland picked up their second World Cup title. It wasn't the dream team pairing that everyone was hoping for, but it was medium-sized Hendo Weekendo with Peter Wright. And early on in the tournament, Boise, they were ropey, but the final day in particular, they were sensational.
Yeah, they were sensational, and I think there was a lot of talk beforehand, and obviously now, quite disrespectful in regards to Henderson, in regards to if Scotland win it, it's Peter Wright winning the World Cup for Scotland, when actually it was, in a lot of the key moments, it was John Henderson who was the man who stepped up at that point. And on the final day, it was a fantastic day for Scotland, because of the performances they was putting in. As you said, didn't start the tournament great, but got better, and that final day was very good from them to then beat Austria in the final, and beat Austria that was at a Mensur, the return of Mensur, shall we say, at the World Cup, which was also good to see. But who can really moan about Scotland winning the World Cup and seeing the emotion from Jen Henderson on that night?
To be fair, this one tournament has potentially saved John Henderson's tour card because of what came with it. If he doesn't win it and doesn't get in the slam, missing out on the Worlds, he's arguably dead man walking. So this tournament has given him a stay of execution. Go.
Yeah, and if it works out that way long term, he's out of blinder, because it got him in the slam and he didn't do a lot with it. And it hasn't really been the catalyst that a lot of people hoped it would be for John Henderson in this mini revival of his career. He has not had the best year at all. This was a brilliant moment for him with Peter. He was superb at times in this tournament. As enough people are mentioning, and Lee mentioned the disrespect going into this, that if they're going to win it, Peter Wright would have to play a blinder. Peter Wright was shocking. As good as he was in the match play, at times in this World Cup, he was dreadful. And John Henderson bailed him out of an awful lot of holes. But he just doesn't seem to have that fight or that extra gear that he needs for the rest of the year.
It's going to be interesting. And then from there, we went to...
Sorry, Phil, just one point on that as well.
Go on,
Phil,
boys.
just one point on that was interesting is like the week or two after, when Gary Anderson was saying that it's only right that does they've won it, they defend it. What will be interesting to see is, because we've seen Henderson drop. Yes, he's done enough to save his toe tide, but it'll be interesting to see if that is just Gary Anderson's decision next year with people like Alan Suter who can Endo above him. Will they all be willing to step back and let Endo though and try and defend his title?
I don't think the players will get a lot of choice in the matter, if I'm being honest.
I just think it's easier for Ando to say than it is for someone like Alan Suter, who would be his first time.
Yeah, look, if Anderson says no, he says no. However, I'm not 100% confident if Anderson says no, they go straight to Hendo.
No. Not ranking-wise, not when you've potentially got Suits, Andy Bolton, amongst others.
For them,
Yeah.
Andy Bolton. For them,
Yeah,
Andy
exactly.
Bolton.
Well, instead of Peter Wright, he's English. It's easy to forget about a man in contention for Scotland when he's not Scottish.
Well, that
Paul
did happen in
Nicholson is about
2021
3
as well,
years
didn't
I
it?
am, yet he played in God knows how many World Cups.
Then, moving on, we went to Copenhagen for the first time for the Nordic Darts Masters. And this was significant for many reasons. One, it is Michael van Gerwen's only TV tournament win in 2021. And two, it is the first time a female had been in a TV PDC final, boys. Pick the bones out of that.
Well, it was all Gerwin Price's fault because he made it happen. He let it happen. They should all be saying thank you to him and bowing down to our fearless world number one for being such a generous individual. Oh wait, that was just his Instagram. I wasn't impressed with that when that happened. Look, Gerwin Price did withdraw earlier on in this tournament before he was meant to play Fallon with an elbow injury. She was superb at times throughout this event. Pushed Michael a lot of the way in that final. The collapse of Dimitri van den Berg in the game before is probably the biggest talking point. Not superb averages by a long, long way, but Fallon hung in there, kept hitting him with all the shots, and Dimmy crumbled. And it's another example of a player playing against Fallon up on stage that just did not like what happens when the crowd going at you, when the moment's there to be here. It's just an intriguing moment because there's been a lot of talk recently, especially as people are talking up Fallon's potential inclusion in the Premier League, that she should be celebrated for her achievements as a dart player, not by her sex or gender. But at the same time, the opportunities she's getting at the minute are largely because of those. And then the players are falling apart against her because there still is a little bit of a stigma around losing to a woman in professional darts because it just doesn't happen regularly enough at the minute.
Oh, great. I agree. There is a stigma, but this also helps when this one can average a ton.
Yes. But she didn't average a ton against Dimitri. He fell
Oh,
apart.
no, she did. No. But yeah, look, Dimitri, let's not sugarcoat it. His arse fell out.
Yes.
Yeah, it did. But I guess the flip of that is, yes, Price stepped aside, whatever the right withdrew due to injuries, probably the right professional term to use. But one thing we've saw a lot more since obviously COVID's hit, with a lot of players dropping out and reserves coming in and not taking that opportunity. Yes, Fallon wasn't a reserve in this. However, she got an opportunity of being into the semi-finals after winning the first game. And it's someone who had that opportunity and grabbed it with both hands, and it put her in good stead. I'm not sure she would have then gone on and achieved what she did throughout the rest of the year if she didn't make the final this year. There's a confidence it gave her down into the women's series, and then going into the other TV events, which I'm sure we'll touch upon. Gave her that confidence that not only can she beat men on telly, which we saw with Mensor and telly in the Worlds a few years back, that she can compete with the top players in the sport and not just coming through those early rounds in the Worlds.
Yeah, just a couple of people on about Price. He's had, like Mason said, he came back and he's had 2 injections in it since. And I was lucky enough to be in Copenhagen, and when we were interviewing him afterwards, he physically couldn't straighten his arm fully because of it. So there was, I know, a lot of conspiracy theories went up and everything like that. He was paid to pull out and all that. He genuinely couldn't straighten his arm. And his first round performance reflects that, because for Price, his standards, it was awful. Just lucky there was nothing in front of him that he had to beat.
Yeah, but and if you're going to do it for Price, if you're going to do it in any tournament, it was the right tournament. A World Series event, it was probably the right tournament to do that. Totally understood why he went to sort of try it out in the first round. Made total sense why he went. But if you're going to pull out of any, it's the ideal sort of event to do that.
Well, yeah, because he went and played, he picks up his appearance fee.
Exactly.
So from there, after a little spell of non-ranked events, as Gob likes to point them out, we returned to action, this time in Leicester. We weren't at the City West, weren't on the Emerald Isle. But it was a familiar feeling. The Ferret added his 3rd TV title to this glittering collection, Gob. And again, in spells, just sublime in Leicester. The final against Gezi was unreal.
Yeah, he was superb. Bit of a wrecking ball. It's a bit like a Van der Voort at times, where he just got out in front of people and just rammed people down. Yeah, superb. And the fact it was on the doubles, which Clayton's one of them who seems to have either a very, very high doubles percentage or very low doubles percentage. It's not very level. It's a bit Gary Anderson of old, perhaps, where it's either very on or very not. To go and win a double-in tournament is superb. It's like seeing Dave Chisnell make the semi-finals and finals of this event. You just don't understand how it happened, but it did happen. He was superb. I guess this is the moment to mention the fact that after waiting all year for crowds to return, probably didn't want them there because they were terrible in Leicester. Not in terms of that, but in terms of the way that they interacted with players. One in particular, perhaps, maybe a couple more. If it was, I dare say, if it was a German crowd or a Dutch crowd on the Eurotour, we would have hammered them a lot more than we actually did on this show. And
in the main, I didn't think they were that bad. Yes, there were pockets within the crowd, but the overall, I didn't think they were that bad. There were individuals in there, I'm not arguing that, but overall, I didn't think the overall crowd were that bad.
I think you get that at most crowds, though. And the issue is that the PDC product for so long have been more concerned about what it does for a television audience than what it does to the players. And because they've allowed it to grow and get worse over time, there's just no way of stopping it. There's no way of curtailing it and pulling it back. They've allowed it to go on too far.
It's all on. It's either as it is now, or it's Lakeside.
Yeah.
As it was back in the day. There's nothing in between, because it is what it is. It's juggernaut that's gone too far.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't really recall any moment where you look at a crowd and go, that's the moment when crowds change forever. That's when they overstep the line. It's just gradually built up and built up and built up, and you've seen more and more incidents occur. flashback to George Noble on a Euro tour, basically offering somebody outside at one point. I know he wasn't, but he's like, "Oh, he'd do that again, and security will have you." I don't really remember any ref asking for best of order, don't call out what the players are throwing. That's the main bugbear. I have absolutely no issue with a crowd making noise, supporting their player, even booing to a certain extent, because it is a constant wave of noise the players can set up at the hockey, and that's not going to change. It's the deliberate shouts, it's the whistles, it's people in the crowd deliberately trying to affect the outcome of a dart by making somebody else's body do something that they're not intending it to do. That's an issue.
Yeah, look, it is what it is. Unfortunately, you're not going to change it. So, I just think it just has to be embraced, the wrong word, but accepted. You aren't going to change it.
Yes. The yes and no to that. The problem is if it goes, like it says, what they've built now is sort of the experience that they've got now is either this or, like it says, go back to sort of Lakeside. The problem is it can't go much further. I agree with you in the sense that there was only pockets, but when they were bad in Leicester, they were really bad compared to what we've seen before. That was sort of the difference, and it's how far that and that pushed. I just don't want to see it go any further. Because there was part in Leicester that I was disappointed with. The good part of Leicester was for the first time I got to meet Dob in person. That was a positive, wasn't it, mate?
Yeah. And we both managed to stay awake longer than my girlfriend did watching the darts live for the first time.
I thought I'd see you up for that one, mate.
Nightmare.
And then
all the trains home got cancelled, and God knows else. Yeah, that was an eventful night.
From there, out of nowhere, Rob Cross has waited 2 years for a title, and he defended the huge chunk of money that was about to come off his ranking, and everyone's saying he was about to do the Titanic, and he produces a tournament win, which we said he was playing well, but I don't think anyone thought there was this coming. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I'm with you on that totally. He was playing well and he was getting better, but to go on and then win the European Championship was not what anyone expected. Or he was a very brave person to be backing him going into that. No surprise to see him, like it says, push on and get to the latter stages, but to see him go on and win it, and the manner he then went on and win it as well, I just thought it was very good to see as well. Because he's dropped a lot down the rankings and would have been even further if he wouldn't have picked up the title, because he was defending his money from 2 years ago. So it was good to see. It's another one. Seeing Rob Cross getting back to the levels we've been seeing before, still not there of where he was when he went on and won the World Championship. But for me, it was very good to see a good week for Cross.
Yeah, and it was interesting, this whole tournament. By the way, lucky enough to go to Salzburg. That arena is brilliant for darts, and I expect to see it more on the calendar. I think we'll see maybe the European Championship staying in and around Salzburg, perhaps, because the arena was genuinely amazing, perfect for darts. But also in this tournament, for me, my game of the year happened in this tournament, in the quarterfinals. The MVG price game was just unreal in the quarterfinals. For me, it was like gripping darts on the edge of our seats, them both going at it.
They're both a bit average, though, aren't they?
It was with that quarterfinal happening. It was one of them that everyone was building it up and hoping that we'd see the level from both players, and we certainly did. It was at that probably point, even more than when he won the TV title and then won the Nordic Masters. That was probably the point where people are taking MVG more seriously to being back to the levels he can perform. Because Durbin Price pushed him all the way. and it was. It's hard to think of another one, or there's certainly other dames there, but it was certainly in the contender for Dame of the Year.
Yeah, completely. And then, shock horror.
I just want to say, Cross has been in finals in alternate years 3 times at the European Championship. If he learns how to play in the European Championship in an even ending year, he'd be superb.
Yeah. Then we all went to Amsterdam.
Shocking.
Yeah, Rob Toss and the European Championship could be Derwin Price and Aldersley Leisure Village, doesn't it? If it was, he played to the same level on even years as he does odd.
It won't be, because we ain't going back to the Aldersley Leisure Village, that's for sure. I mean, that was lovely. that relationship will still be the same now. Derwin Price will always love Aldersley Leisure Village. It'll just be something of the past, potentially. From there, we went to Amsterdam to the AFAS Arena. Johnny Clayton has added TV title number 4 of the year and joined a very, very, very exclusive club of players to win 4 TV titles in a year. Until this point, it was only Phill Taylor, Michael Van Gerwen, and Gary Anderson. What a roll of honour to put yourself on, Gob.
It's a nice little club, isn't it?
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going and having a game with those 3. Bit of blind pairs. You wouldn't mind who you paired with then either, would you, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, look, what a club to join, and just sensational.
Yeah. And it's not even round the year off, because we do still have the World Championships to come. But Johnny Clayton has been superb, and the only issue with this year is that Johnny Clayton has a knack of winning tournaments that mean bugger all to his world rankings.
Yeah, but you say that. He's world number 7 or 8, and he doesn't do well in ranked. Can you imagine if he did well in ranked majors?
Well, he's won 1 rank, but he's been superb on the floor as well. Let's not forget that. If the prize money carried for the events he's won as well, where would he be?
But the flip of that,
your boy wouldn't be on the top 4, that's for sure.
He's world number 8, but he's got nothing to defend. If you looked at it that way, there's everything he's got to defend. He's in other tournaments, so there's not really any defending money going into next year. So
yeah. But again, looking at the World Series of Darts final, again, you need a little bit of luck sometimes in tournaments, and Johnny may have just got a bit of the rub of the green in this one. He edged out his World Cup winning teammate in the quarterfinals. Was he 9-5 up? He had a ridiculous lead.
He was a long way ahead, and he didn't finish in the lead.
Yeah.
Basically,
well,
what happened is the FIA said that everybody can go past, and then put him on different tyres and sent him off to get him on the last lap.
Rule number 15.3 is the equivalent of Rule 1.
Wrong sport.
But yeah, going back to it, that Gezi couldn't finish his dinner. Clayton got a little bit of luck, but from that moment, again, unplayable. 2 ton-plus averages in the semi-final and final. Beat Dimitri van den Berg. And if we're being honest, Dimitri's run to this final kind of came left field, because at this point he was in no form whatsoever.
Made 2 finals this year, and we haven't really heard a lot about Dimitri. He won the match play that sort of came out of nowhere behind closed doors. We questioned if he was able to do that because of the fact there was no crowd there, despite him being one of the players that normally revels being up on stage. He's had the leg injury at times. He's had tournaments where he's been knocked out first round, but he's also made 2 finals, lost in that match play final to Peter Wright. Don't think anybody was getting near Peter Wright that day, and loses to Clayton as well. It's been a bit of a weird year for Dimitri van den Berg. Nicely placed, hasn't done an awful lot. we'll get to that group of 10 later on, but I think he might be in there regardless of what happens later in the year because of his world ranking position and the fact he speaks 6 different languages and God knows else what. But yeah, he's another one that you perhaps need just a little bit more from him this year. And I know that's harsh to say. And the thing is, we're saying this a lot this year, that we wanted more from certain players. But, okay, we've got a full complement of Pro Tours, but only 2 Euro Tours, I think is a massive difference. Because if players go on and win them, which I think Dimitri Van den Berg is the sort of player that will pick up Euro Tours in the coming years, especially if that calendar returns to 10, 12, however many Euro Tours we get. He loves playing in front of a crowd. He's got the ability to do it on that weekend. Shorter races as well. We'll see more from Dimmy, and that will A, add to his ranking, B, it will give him the confidence to keep winning on TV, that sort of thing. So, yeah, look, I know it's harsh that we're judging players that perhaps haven't had 12 Euro Tours and everything else that will suit these players. But, yeah, I just felt like, despite 2 finals, I never felt he was really in either of them. And you just wanted that little bit more from him.
The thing is that we can only judge them on what we see. We only judge them on the tournaments they played. And yes, unfortunately, the tournaments haven't been played.
Yeah, I think on that one, I agree that we expected more. But the reason we expected more is because he won one without fans in. He obviously won the match play without fans in. And he's a player who we associate with playing better with fans. So to then see him win one without fans in and not then push on and win one when they return this year was probably more the surprise. But we are probably understating the year that he's had because he's still had a good year in regards to the finals. It was just there's a few players who was talking about played better, probably without fans. Jose to maybe fall into that category. The flip of that is people like Asp and MVG and then Dimmy certainly comes into that conversation of when fans return, we expected a certain level from them. And maybe that we was expecting a little bit too much from Dimmy in what has been a good year.
Yeah,
and I guess my point also comes from the relevance of not having MVG, Wright and Price winning everything. In a year where Michael van Gerwen has not won a ranked televised title, there's so many more for everybody else to go around. And all right, Johnny Clayton's won 4 of them, so that swallows up an awfully large chunk of it. But at the same time, last year was possibly the most diverse year of TV title winners we've ever seen in the PDC. This year must be close numbers-wise, but I possibly think a little bit down on that. And after you've had that diverse year, and then that diversity seems to continue because your big 3 struggle, you just expect those opportunities to come again because at some point in the next 18 months, you fully expect Gerwyn Price to get a clean slate of health where he's not hampered by COVID with the Premier League and that sort of thing, and a clean run at everything. Michael van Gerwen will win TV titles again. I'm not sure he's going to win one this year, wrote it off completely, but the performances are getting back, the confidence are getting back, the action looks very, very good. Peter Wright is capable of winning tournaments whenever he pleases. I think he will start to be a little bit more selective. The man plays in everything and anything, and I'm not sure that's very good for him. But if those 3 return to the dominance that they are and pick up 2-3 titles a year between them, especially the ranked ones, doesn't leave a lot for everybody else to go around at that point.
No,
you have to make the most of it whilst they're not struggling, but whilst they're not winning.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next one, chat room absolutely on fire. Promise we're not ignoring you. We're clocking the questions. Shane from Dublin, we'll come to yours when we answer some questions, mate. Great question. Also, there's some absolute belters in there. Big Johnny, the Aspon injury one, we'll come on to that as well. So don't panic. We're not ignoring them. We will come to you as always. And remember, make sure you drop us a like. Only 36. You boys can do better. Boys and girls can do better than that. Now, from Amsterdam, we returned to Wolverhampton. And if you didn't guess it by now, it was a familiar feeling. 3 tournaments in the Aldersley Leisure Village for Gerwyn Price. And he is a 3 times Grand Slam champion as he lifts the Eric Bristow Trophy. And Boise, was there ever a doubt it was going to happen?
No, not really. Probably the draw, quarter-final draw, when it came up that he was playing Johnny Clayton and the form that Johnny Clayton was going in against Gerwyn Price. I think after losing something like 8 on the bounce to Price, he'd then won the last 2 or 3, one of which being at the European Championship. So I think going into that, there was talk, but actually performance-wise, the only real person who I felt pushed him was Bradley Brutz in the second round, in what was a very good tie. But overall, his name was on it for me. Dobbs didn't disagree with me looking at his face.
What you saying, was it ever in doubt? The man nearly didn't get out of the group, for Christ's sake. He started this tournament terribly. He got better throughout, but actually, if you ask me who had a better tournament up until that final, the man he met in the final had a far better tournament. And he struggled at
I get that. He had through his first game, however, he did qualify after 2 games. The final game was a dead rubber for him. Yeah. He'd already qualified. Yes, he went on and lost it to Schindler, but he was already through after those 2.
A leg away, maybe, but he's 1 leg away the opposite way from it being a disaster. And I know you get those moments. Peter Wright had those moments in the World Championship. Most players get those moments in a tournament somewhere. You need those moments of luck, as we keep saying. But yeah, I'm not sure this one was as clear cut. He was very, very good towards the back end of it. Very good against Johnny Clayton. Very good against James Wade, who was a little bit flat after being so good before that. And he was very good in the final against the worst Peter Wright we've seen since he played with Phill Taylor looking darts at the Pro Tours 8 weeks ago.
And also, the tournament win meant Gezi would go to Ali Pali as the number 1 seed as well. Because at this point, there was a few question marks in and around. Would he be caught? But this one meant he would not, and he would go to Ali Pali as the number 1 seed. Shawnee Mack is in as well. Hope you are well, mate. And if you can just win your first round game.
I think that means he can't be caught afterwards as well, because the closest competitor to him is Peter Wright, who is defending winner's money. So I'm not sure he can be caught as a result of the World Championship either. Maybe Marco van Gerwen. I'd have to double check the numbers. But it was the win against Johnny Clayton that secured it, because that got him far enough to stay ahead of Peter Wright, even if Wright had won this tournament just. There was a possibility that Johnny Clayton could have ruined Gerwen Price's even more by beating him and then Wright going on to win the title.
Technically, Peter Wright could be world number 1 on January the 3rd. Peter Wright would have to win the World Championships, and Gezi would have to fall in round 3.
Fallon.
To Fallon. which
Fallon knows to walk up. Stop Gerwen Price being world number 1 if Peter Wright wins the tournament. That's a big game. What's he beat him?
So yeah, that's it.
I guess also that name mentioned there, Fallon, probably a talking point as well. As you said, one of the games of the year we had with NVG and Price. Probably one of the moments of the year, if not the moment of the year, was in the Slam with Fallon and that 170, then Slemons. Certainly one that Starby mentioned because of what he'd done, and once then pushed her on to another level. We said that I was saying about the Nordic darts gave her that confidence, but then this just pushed her on a then, didn't it?
I'm not going to name and shame them. However, when that 170 went in the press room's normally quite quiet, isn't it, boys? So there's a little bit of chit chat, but it's normally people are working, getting their heads down. That leg, everyone stopped. All eyes were on TV, and when that went in, I'm not going to lie, the roof almost came off the press room. I'm not going to name and shame the people that were there, but the cheer and the roar was unreal.
No bias in the press room, though, is there, Phil?
Not at all. Hashtag numbers.
Dob, there's only Phil sat in there. He's on his own. He just sat on his own.
Might as well have been in his bedroom. Yeah!
That's how I say Phill from throwing everyone under the bus. Who he said that was in the press room. It was just him. I swear.
Yeah. Honestly, the roof came off the place. It was unreal.
But
I gave it
one
Suter in there. Hello,
Suits is in the house as well. Hope you are well, mate.
Shawnee Mack's practice partner, I believe.
And by the way, Shawnee Mack is still absolutely ribbing Suits. On my interview that I did with him in Budapest, I asked Suits a question. He's like, "No, I'm not telling you." So me being me, went round the houses. 2 questions later, got the answer I wanted, and Shawnee Mack is literally not letting go of it since. Rose, I'm not even going to hide the fact I cheered. Not even going to hide it. And then from there, we went to the final TV tournament of the year in a rather cold Butlins in Minehead. And I'll tell you what, this tournament had a bit of everything. I picked this picture deliberately because normally when people pick up the trophies, they're happy and that. But that's a bit of a snarl and a glare from Peter Wright because it all kicked off in Minehead when he fell out with Adrian Lewis, and ever since he was booed. And not once in that presentation party did Peter look like he just won a TV title, Boise.
Yeah, it's one of the most talked about probably moments of the year when we're not talking about the sort of big chit outs. Away from actually the board was the moment of Wright and Lewis, and it did. I know Wright touched upon before in Holland that he's had the fans against him, but when it's in the UK, he's normally one of the best supported when he's coming onto stage, not just throughout the day, but when he's coming onto the stage. We was even hearing boos when his name was being mentioned, and it certainly rolled him up differently than what he did, and that picture does sum it up. That probably is that what we saw from Wright then the rest of the weekend, and it was very strange to see because, like I says, he's not a player we expect the fans to react that way to him. He's normally a fan's favourite. But fair play to him to going on and lifting that. That final leg, the pressure he was under, just shows what quality that Peter Wright has got. I will add with a caveat of if he uses the same darts for the whole tournament.
I was about to say, you took the words right out of my mouth, Cobb. There's no surprise that he wins the match play with a set of gold diamond element 11s. He then spends 4 months farting around. He comes back to Minehead, plays with those same gold diamond element 11s and wins the title. I'm not no rocket scientist.
I've been convinced that the World Championship darts were the better darts for him, the ones that he won the world title with previously. We've seen him use them at moments. I think he won the Masters with them when he went to win that previously. But yeah, those element 11s suit Peter Wright right now to the hill. The straight barrel has always been the one for him. I think anybody and everybody can see that. He's obsessed with trying to emulate Phill Taylor by the looks of things. The amount of times he swaps back to the 9.5 style bomb occasionally, which means he's completely lost his head because he goes to them stupid plastic kite flights as well that aren't quite kites, whatever they are. But once he goes back to these with that flight and the Dimplex plastic flight on it as well, he's very, very good with them. He's very, very good with lots of things, but he's very, very good with them, and he just needs to stick with them now.
I'll tell you, in terms of interviews and content that we got over this weekend was absolutely insane.
200,000 views between them.
There wasn't just that. It was one of the ones that I had to cut a line at, and one of the PDC staff said, "I wish I could let you leave that in there because it is brilliant." Our friend, old Vincent, dropped an absolute belter of a line. The question was, now stage 2's done, how does the dynamic of the tournament change? And he was like, I don't really know. I've only been on stage 2. That's where they put the players. And it was just absolutely genius from Vincent. Also, Michael went on the rampage backstage as well when it was freezing cold. He did his ITV interview and then unfortunately, the PDC official that was on duty that day got it both barrels, and miraculously, next day they put the heaters were on when we arrived. It went from freezing cold to Tropicana drinks are free.
Jeez, bit of wham.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was remarkable. But that summed up there. Also, massive shout out to Ted Everts winning the World Youth. But we're going to finish a look on the year with this picture. We started with one similar, but we're just going to finish with this image. The Sid Wardell Trophy returned to Alexandra Palace for the 2022 William Hill World Darts Championships. It's going to be interesting, boys. It's going to be 16 emotional days in the Big Brother house. And
For you.
I am absolutely buzzing. Don't get me wrong, over the next 3 weeks, my caffeine levels aren't going to be great. But when you see that image, the stage, the trophy, you can't help but get goosebumps.
Yeah, I'm with you. That since we was on 2 weeks ago now, is it? And the draw was made. I think my excitement has just been building little by little. Seeing the adverts.
Wait, this reference.
Reading,
Yes.
seeing the adverts, seeing all the images, everyone pumped up for it, reading the previews that Jar's been doing on our website, all sorts of them is just, for me, is just building it up more and more for, one, the World Championships just being here, two, it being backed with fans. Boris, it's after 9 o'clock, if you screw it up, I'm going to be fuming. But it's going to be good to have it back with fans. And I just can't wait for it to start.
I'm not going to lie. When the news brief came out yesterday at like 5:30, saying Boris is going to brief the nation at 8, I was like, don't you dare. Don't you dare. But he didn't. And so
I think I was worried not only for that, is the fact of him doing it on like the Thursday then. So we have 1 day of fans. I know last year we had that 1 day and it wasn't full, but it gave us a taste for it. And then it was the next day. Sorry, see you later. No one's in. And they've done a good job. So I love the Wharton and how that worked with the Wharton being centre, and that photo sort of sums it up. But just can't wait for it to be back and tuning in and seeing Christmas parties and all that sort of fun, and it being a full Alexander Palace on Wednesday evening and onwards.
Yeah, completely. So that was a look back of the year. Boys, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I haven't warned you about this. Only pick one memory of what we've seen in 2021. One memory, one game, one moment. What would it be? And to you guys in the chat room as well, your one moment of 2021. It can be a game, it can be a moment, it can just be something. What was it?
Don first, Dob?
No, you go first. I think mine might bring you down a bit, so we'll get yours out of the way.
Yeah. So, Phil, away from the dartboard, it was obviously being in Blackpool when everything opened back up and being able to hit pot ball on night one. That was a highlight. But that aside, for me, being where I was on the night when Fallon took that 170, that's got to be the moment for me. And the fact that I'm on the back of that picture just makes it even more special for me in the Groovy shirts. So, but yeah, that moment just sort of, I don't want to say came from nowhere, but that one moment of Fallon taking out that 170 was just incredible. Dob?
Mine wasn't a precise moment, Mine was over a week or two, but it was the response and the reaction from the darts community when we lost Kyle. That was superb for me. Like, a bit emotional.
Yeah.
But yeah, that meant a lot to me. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's an unbelievable one. Plenty in the chat room as well. Mace says the game between Price and MBG, Fallon's 1-4-1. Clayton and DeSales are miscounting. They're always up there.
I feel like PB, you're trying to stay away with one here because you've not said yours.
No, I'm just thinking. Yeah, look, obviously what Gob said, and arguably that's my worst moment of 2021. I remember getting the call at 5 a.m. and it just felt empty. But like Gob said, that for every disappointment in life, there's a response. And look, darts social media can be a cruel place at times, but that showed that there was also a lot of good there as well. The money they raised for Kyle's family was just heartwarming. That there is some good in there, because at times, like I said, it can be a cruel place, but the way everyone came together was sensational. So I'm going to have two. Off the oche, I completely agree with Gob. On the oche, I'm going to go close to yours, Boise, but I think the 1-4-1 was better from Fallon. That
Shall
the 1-4.
Shall we just combine it as one big moment?
Yeah. Look, yes, she divides opinion because of everything it is in the world. However, she's got one hell of a set of cojones. Because if Price MBG was doing that, we'd be saying balls of steel. To do it under those moments. So yeah, that's mine. And to be fair, even the World Championship cover split opinion on social media when the PDC released it. Who was centre stage? So yeah, it's no, they're up there with me. But it's all good. We've still got loads to look forward to. So yeah, we're launching the live league as well. We'll come on to the live league in a week in darts, because that was certainly absolutely unreal for finals week. So we haven't got many other pictures teed up, so I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm going to put the other, put that one back up, so we can go a week in darts, boys. It's been interesting. Before we come on to some questions, the WDF draw and schedule. Sorry, I'm going in here. The draw. No, look, I've done it to the PDC, so people can't say I haven't. The fact that their World Championship draw was not live was an absolute shambles. I've panned the PDC for it, so people can't say I haven't. Tournaments of that stature and magnitude, the draws should be live. Not just in darts, in any sport. Right? I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that the draw was done again or anything like that. But if you're a player and you've got a naff draw, how do you know that hasn't been? That seed of doubt will always be there. Where if it's live, you can't get out of it.
it's not just the world. It's not just the WDF here. All draws should be live. There should be.
That's what I said. It's not just that. I'm paying the PDC for it.
Yeah. And it was a mistake that we hammered one organisation for, and the other organisation went and did exactly the same thing. And that was a little bit disappointing. At no point are we accusing any of the organisations of anything, but there will always be that moment of doubt, because as sport has quite clearly shown in the last 4-5 weeks, governing bodies are starting to show their true colours, that good for TV is more important than sporting integrity. And I think that's the politest way of putting the F1 result, potential selection of Premier League and everything else. There are very, very blurry lines right now in sport in general between sporting integrity and pushing a product that's good for TV.
On that one, because we are solely talking about the draw, we've seen today what can happen with a live draw. And if that wasn't live, that draw that was happened in the Champions League probably would have stayed as it was, but because it was live, questions are asked, and then it had to be redone, which is the same as, I'm the same as you, I'm not saying that anyone has done anything dodgy with any of the draws. However, it could have been hidden quite well, i.e. today's could have been edited out that team wasn't mentioned, and it was just the second team that was pulled out. So for me, it has to be live, and that's the second part to that for me is, we've spoke on previous shows about sort of ticket sales and how many people are going to be sort of tuned into the WDF. There's a timing of it overlapping with the PDC. I just think there's an opportunity there, and I know that the TV channels have got to buy into it, but there's an opportunity there to promote that on your show, to have a 15 minutes, similar to what they've done with the Worlds, the PDC with Sky Sports. There's an opportunity there for it to be on their channels for 15 minutes, just doing the draw, and it sort of brings that hype, and that there's some of the draws and some of the first round and second round ties that we know they're going to have are very, very good and very intriguing, but you've done it on a pre-recorded draw, and there's just an opportunity there that just, for me, has been totally been missed by the WDF, which is a shame, because there is going to be some, like as I said, quality ties from first round all the way through to the final.
Especially as it was a reasonably high production draw and studio that they had. It looked pretty good. I wasn't expecting that, I'll be completely honest. And it looked superb, but the issue is that it just wasn't live. And like I said, they've missed an opportunity there. We've hammered the PDC for it. It doesn't have to be high production. It doesn't have to be all whistles and all bells and whistles. You don't even have to put graphics on the screen. You can go back and do that later. As long as there is a live stream somewhere on the internet of a broadcast of that draw happening at that exact moment, there cannot ever be any questions.
Yeah, massively. And what's your thoughts on the scheduling? Because I know that it was very differing opinions in our WhatsApp chat, but for me, the tie of the first round is Martin Adams against Jared Cole, and you've put it on first. It's just a waste for me.
Potentially it's a waste. Potentially it's a very, very good move. And I understand why people are saying it's a waste completely. But at the same time, over the 2 days that you have the opening rounds of the WDF World Championship, you're going up against the semi-finals of the PDC World Championship, which potentially are going to be 8 players, all with a far bigger commercial pool drive. They've already got the bigger audience, the TV, the market value, the lot. It's already on a better channel for people to watch in the UK as well. Without being disrespectful, from what we've seen of the draw, from the show we did last week, from analysing it, the worst quarter-final, ability-wise, or from the way that we've planned it out, the easiest route for someone to come through, or the most open, or whatever, doesn't involve one of the big boys, potentially, will be at the same time as Martin Adams versus Jared Cole. It is an option to go up against the easiest win they're going to have against the PDC over that 48 hours, and hopefully retain an audience from doing so. You put that on because it's on earlier, start it before, have a really, really good game for that, people won't change the channel. You're hoping for that at that point. And you're hoping it drums up interest from the opening moment. You start with a bang, people are going to notice you throughout that week. That has to be a showcase for people to come back, especially once the PDC is finished. But if you can retain some of that audience, you played an absolute blinder. Their hands are tied by when the event is. Yeah, the crossover is not ideal for anybody. You've got the scheduling crossing over with the PDC World Championship and then Q-Score at the back end of it as well. It's not worked out amazingly. The venue have basically forced the date from what we can gather, instead of potentially moving to Easter, but then you had the potential of being jumped ahead of by Mad, and there's a race to get that one on as well. Their hands are tied, but I think apart from the draw not being live, I don't think they've done a massive amount wrong. People are saying about Brian Roman being on at the same time as the PDC World Final as their number one. The issue is, I don't see Brian Roman as the most commercially viable person in that draw. He may well be the world number one in that order of merit, but that doesn't make him the one that's going to have the most eyes on him.
Right, but here's my one. That there is a gap. Look, I get what you're saying, Gob, but no, I don't disagree. However, the bit that I'm saying is Sunday afternoon, there is no PDC darts. So if you want to showcase it and get all eyes on your best game, then that Sunday afternoon is the perfect one because you're not competing with anything. So showcase your best game of the round. One's a legend and one's an up-and-coming hungry young star. Put that prime time Sunday afternoon when you're not competing with anything. Because then you're drawing all the darting audience when there's nothing else on.
Yeah. I also think as well, I know the sessions are split as well. There's an opportunity from that Sunday. Why does that Sunday need to start at 1 o'clock? Surely there's an opportunity as well to bring that forward. Obviously, we don't want to be starting so early in the morning, but why can't that session start at, say, 11 and even? It gives you more opportunity. I understand the argument from both points with the Adams and Toll, but they've sort of shot themselves in the foot with an early decision that is always going to clash, or some of the big ties are going to clash with the PDC because of the timing of it. I just think there's other opportunities there that they've not taken. Hopefully, because it's the WDF first world title not being BDL, that we'll see this improve down into next year and future years, and hopefully it will get the coverage and from Monday onwards, Tuesday onwards. But yeah, I think they shot themselves in the foot a time ago when the announcing of the tournament was. It was always going to be very difficult, especially as some of the draws panned out to dead them all in a slot that was going to be viable for darts fans to see that, as well as the PDC quarters, semis and finals.
Yeah, look, I just don't think it was the smartest move. But now it is there though. Early, you've had time to digest the draw and everything like that. Who'd you fancy for Lakeside?
I don't know why I didn't expect this question. Dob, you hitting the first this time?
No, it's your turn, surely.
One for me. I didn't just see him having a good run. It's hard to pick the winner, but one to see having a good run is James Richardson for me. Obviously, Shawnee Matt does his tuning in, but another one for me is James Richardson. I can see him having a good run and pushing all the way. One I was really looking forward to was Jared Toll, but he's not done through that first round tie, which is ridiculously tough and not the one you want. But then it says, if we're talking about it after that first round tie, he's going to be a name that's in the mix. But James Richardson's the one I will go for now.
For you, Gob?
Good question. It's an interesting look. There are so many players in there that have just the ability to turn it on, and I don't think this WDF's going to be decided by who turns up with their A game. I think it's whose B game beats other people's B game. Because there's so many players in this draw that just don't have the televised experience either. Some of them do. Some of them played in BDO World Championships before, have been to the Lakeside, etc. But it's just so hit and miss. And the other thing for me that's actually quite annoying is that there are plenty of players in this draw that have played in the live league, and they all seem to have matched each other in the opening couple of rounds. So they're just going to start knocking each other out. If they were separated a little bit more in the draw, it could have just been another episode of the live league from the quarterfinals onwards. But It just looks like they're just going to all beating each other before you get to that point. Connor Scott is in great form. Tough tie if he gets through Sean Burt against Thibaut Tricol, who we've seen his calibre in the last week in the live league. Can't look past Shawnee Mack. If he's beaten Alan Suter, he's playing very, very well. Both of those have had fantastic years. Jared Cole, another superb young player. I went big on Leighton Bennett when he was involved 2 years ago. But a 14-year-old world champion, I genuinely think Luke Littler has the game to do this over the extended period. And he's just not afraid of anybody. And the fact that there's so many in this field that just don't have the experience up on that stage could work for him. I'm going with Luke Littler.
There's a few, like you, I was looking at that, and I was looking at who's in what quarter. I really like the quarter of the draw that Mike Warburton's in.
Yeah.
Really like that quarter. I think Mike Warburton comes through his quarter and gets to the semi-final.
I think if he doesn't, he's beaten by Jim McEwen.
Agreed, yeah. But I really like Warby from that quarter. The top quarter, if he gets through Jared Cole, I think Martin Adams gets through that. Just his TV experience and prepping for one game a day will suit Wolfie no end. But getting through Jared Cole's no gimme. If he comes through that, I fancy Wolfie. Then the bottom half, again, Connor Scott has played some amazing stuff, but his A game is very good. But again, like Mason, you have said, the B game needs work. Like we saw in Champions Week, when he was on, sensational. But the B game was more like a C game. That level's not there yet. If he turns up, he'll be amazing. I think Shawnee Mack comes through Dave Paoletti, and I think he'll play the winner of Scott Marsh, or I think James Richardson's beat Sebastian Stayer. Then Marsh against Stayer Marsh against Richardson's a great game. I think the winner of that little quarter may come through. But there's one name in here, and look, this is a very big if here.
You're not.
If he gets it right, for me, he has the best A game in this field. It's Cameron Menzies.
Lee, how do you not know who this is? Lee looks like he didn't know who this was.
No, I genuinely think
I'm pulling my hand here to stop myself shaking my head up.
Is unreal.
I would gob that the B game wins this.
But however, for Menzies, whoever's looking after him that week needs to be like a minder. Literally, you handcuff yourself to him. And I know this from thing. I had to go around Southampton trying to find him when he was lost.
Phil thinks that having a couple win Yarmouth and everything there translates to Fallon winning the PDC Worlds and Cameron Menzies winning the BDO.
I just think that Menzies' A game is
absolutely holiday park. Inside of the alley pally.
We've seen it on the Euro Tour when he averaged 107. Like Big Johnny's gone, he's a liability. I'm not arguing that, but if you can get him in the right frame of mind, the action is like Gary Anderson's. It's Rolls Royce. It doesn't break down.
I think For me, at the moment, is someone who's more likely to win a weekend type events than I expect him to go and win a week's Lund. And he's probably going to produce some of the best moments of this tournament because he has that totally in his locker. But him to go on and win it, I just struggle because he's, as much as his A game is probably one of the best, his B game is one of the worst.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm not arguing he's a liability or anything like that. I just think that if he can hook it up, he's going to be sensational. But if you had a gun to my head for consistency, Martin Adams. I just think out of everyone, he's got the best B game.
He does, but always. And I know the live league days are long days, but he gets a rest between every 7 legs or so. And my concern for Wolfie is quarter semis and finals when that is a proper distance, because this isn't the PDC. They're not stopping every 30 seconds for the TV breaks. They break once.
No, it won't be not if it's on Eurosport. There'll be scheduled breaks.
Be every 2
Before
sets.
it was only because it was on the BBC. There was no breaks. Where this is on Disney Plus, Quest, and whatever else it's on Eurosport, there will be scheduled ad breaks.
That might help him then. But all I know is this one is wide open. I think.
Oh, completely. I'm genuinely looking forward to it.
Roman's
in
number
terms
one.
Of the subplots are unreal.
Yeah. Richard Veenstra.
PB, if you are right though, and Cameron Menzies does go on and win Lakeside, I would love to be in Lakeside with him that night, because that will be one hell of a party.
Forget Gary Anderson's darts ending up at the bottom of the lake. I'm concerned about Cammy.
To be fair, it's easy. He's throwing with Chris Dobie darts at the moment, so they're easy to replace. Just get them out of the packet. But yeah, no, look, buzzing. What's that?
We talk the
I
ladies draw.
I was about to say, coming on to the ladies draw. Obviously, the story is Fallon pulling out. Look, none of us were surprised. We'd all been planning that she wasn't in it, so there's no thing in that. The ladies is interesting for me because, unlike the men, for me the seeds, barring one that's not seeded, are very much stronger than the qualifiers.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Where the other one, it's wide open, and the non-seeds are arguably stronger than some of the seeds. Yeah, you've just seen what I've seen, Gob, in the chat. Nothing to see here.
What? Oh no, I've just had a message.
Oh.
About the darts that Cammy's using. And the subplots.
Yeah,
Next.
Look, yeah, Suzuki's not seeded, but the rest of the 8 seeds are a lot stronger than the non-seeds in this one.
Yeah. Well, you say that. In terms of performances at the ladies series, okay, we didn't see Zylstra, we didn't see Eileen de Graaf. Lorraine Hyde outperformed a large number of those seeds. Laura Turner did. Corinne Hammond did. Amanda Harwood had a good one. There are names in there that can cause an upset.
On
but
the
standout is
TV cameras on. I'm not convinced. Yeah.
The standout is Mikuru Suzuki. And she's got a horrible draw there. Laura Turner and Aileen de Graaf is not a nice way to start this tournament. Rhiannon O'Sullivan's another one to watch out for. She was very, very impressive in the ladies series throughout. Not a nice draw for Paula Jacqueline. Obviously started her campaign and ended her campaign last year. with Lisa Ashton demolishing. That'll be a tough one for her. The fact that the format has gone up for the ladies is a big, big boost, as is the fact the money's gone up as well. So that's superb for this as well, by the way. Getting to see a best of 7 sets final for the ladies will be incredibly interesting. It's definitely what that game deserves.
Yeah. Again, if you're picking one, who are you going with?
Definitely your turn first this time, Dom.
Is it? No. I think we have the youngest combined WDF World Champions ever. After Luke Littler lifts the men's title at 14, I think Bo Greaves wins this. And I know she's had issues throughout the year, hasn't been great in front of cameras or streams whenever it's played, and has had issues with her throw. But I still think she has so much talent, and her B game is good enough to win a lot in this field. We didn't see her at the women's series. She said she wasn't ready, but then she went off to Chelsea, did bits there. I just think if she gets this right, Bo Greaves delivers on what people have been promising of Bo for a long, long time already, and she's still not even 18.
I just hope that the demons don't come back the further she goes in the tournament, because look, we all saw what Barry Van Peer went through live on TV, and it was horrible to watch. And I just hope that wouldn't happen to Bo if there are still some problems. Before who are you going for, Boise? Before I do mine,
I'm down the complete other end of the spectrum. I'm going for Dieter. Just got a feeling this year. Just got a feeling that Dieter's going to pick it up this year. So, yeah, the complete end of the spectrum age-wise.
People have been having that feeling for 30 years.
Yeah, so I'm probably the worst person to pick someone then, so probably Ginster for a second round defeat. But I've just got a feeling that this year it's going to be Dieter, especially with Fallon and Lisa not there.
If she doesn't win this year, with the absence of those two, it is very difficult to see Dieter Hedman ever winning a women's world title.
Yeah, that's correct.
What she's done in the game, superb. Should she have won one by now? Most likely. Does that translate to deserving for one? Possibly, but you'd never really deserve something in sport until you win it. If she doesn't win it this year, I just don't ever see it happening again. Because you've got the potential of Lisa not having a card next year, which means she'd return to this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if
she's allowed to bring more events, because that was curtailed a lot last year. Suzuki starts playing again properly.
I'm going for the eye-catching final. I'm going Anastasia Dobromoslova takes on Mikuru Suzuki. And I'm going Mikuru wins again.
Would that put a level with Anna? Has Anna got 3, or would that be a battle of 2 times for a third?
Anna has 3, so that would put Mikuru level with her. Yeah,
that would be interesting.
There we go. Also, in the week of darts, the Online Darts Live League wrapped up Phase 6 and wrapped up at a remarkable 2021. And boys, how good was finals week? Matt Campbell, if you're Adrian Lewis, you're now sweating. And I'll go as far as say, if you're Gary Anderson, you're now sweating as well.
Potentially. There's still the increase in format, the fact it's up on a stage, the fact that the last couple of times we've seen Matt Campbell play in PDC darts on a stage has been the World Cup, and in the key moments, he has fluffed his lines a little bit without being disrespectful. That Canada-Belgium game a couple of years ago, Canada were all over them. Matt missed a few, was a little bit disappointed in the flat last year, but he was superb last week. And A.D. Lewis and Gary Anderson are two very, very experienced campaigners, two-time world champions, or whatever it is that they've done in the game. They will have had one eye on that and seen that actually he's getting match practice against solid opponents and playing very, very well. I wouldn't go as far as saying that the 100% concerned and going in as Matt Campbell was going in as favourite in both of those games, but that gap has certainly shortened in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, look, it's going to be good. Look, the whole Champions Week was unreal. We were laughing and joking on Saturday that if it happens in a PDC event, I feel sorry for whoever has to spot and call Ricky Evans against Danny Lalby. Oh my days!
I'm sure Lalby changes naming on his backswing.
Yeah.
It gets to about it, and then he changes his mind as to where he's going and just pings it somewhere else.
Yeah. It's not just that. We would say, I'd swear, sometimes Dart 3 has left his hand before Dart 2 has hit the board. It's insane. But Champions Week was off the scale. We also have a return date. The Live League will return Monday, the 17th of January, 2022. The week after Q School. So just to give you a heads up, you will see plenty of players in that week that did not go to Q School. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
But yeah, have we missed anything else in a week of darts?
No, but we have 10 minutes of the show left, and it feels like this is the last opportunity to give our Premier League 10s.
I was to say we might have 5 minutes of Fergie time, so we are going to give you our Premier League 10s. Also, chat room, I'd like you to give us your Premier League 10s, and also get your questions in for question time. So
a lot to do in 12 minutes, but we're going to try anyway.
That's what I said. There might be some Fergie time. Boise loves a bit of Fergie time.
Boise wasn't allowed Fergie time last time, so don't give us that.
It's next door. Might not be. I'm joking.
Right, but before we do this, is this what we think or what we want?
What?
If you want what we want, you'll know you're getting a stupid answer from me.
So this is what we think the 10 will be, yes?
Yes.
I have 3 columns of names. I have 5 that should be guaranteed. I have 3 that I have 5 that are guaranteed, in my opinion. There are 3 that should be in, and then I have a column of 8 names that you have to pick 2 more from. And it's trying to pick those 2 that is a little bit of a nightmare.
I've got mine. I know I don't sound convincing at all there, but I think I've got mine.
You don't sound convincing at all.
So, I'll down mine while PB still doing these and Dob, you're sorting out your filters on your columns and then a formula to get 10.
I've got mine, but you can go first.
Okay, so Price, Wright, MVG, Wade. Obviously, I'm guessing with all that.
Top 4 as it is. But before we all go, are we all in agreement? Our top 4 are the same. So we don't all have to go through them.
Yeah, that don't move.
Yeah, top 4
Nobody
don't
catches
move.
me. 60 grand is significant.
Yeah, so top 4 is as they are.
Number 5, and I'm putting these in order of certainty. Number 5, I'd end out Johnny Clayton. I can't see that moving. I think he's, apart from being world number 4 that guarantees him a spot, there's no one else more with a shoe in than Johnny Clayton. Number 6, Rob Cross. Number 7, Dimitri. Number 8, Gary Anderson. Number 9, I still think he's got to be in it for the end of the final. He's not had a bad year. He's Jose. And I can't see how she's not in it. So number 10 for me is Fallon.
Gob, have you got yours?
I have
Do you want
the
me to do
first 7 in the
Do you want me
same
to do
order
mine?
that Lee had. Yeah.
Go. Right, so yeah, so my top 4 is the same as Boise's. My 5 and 6 are the same in Cross and Clayton. Then Dimitri, because he ticks every box. I've gone rogue with my 8, and I base this off of what I said about his World Championship. I've gone Joe Cullen because I think he potentially gets to the quarterfinals, semi-finals of the World.
When he said Rose, I thought we was going to have the return of the Barney Army to the Premier League.
No.
I don't know where Rose
No,
is going.
I don't think he'd be managed, but where I think he gets to the quarterfinals, semi-finals of the World, I think that's because of, again, the profile. He fits it. I think that may be enough because that would potentially put him to around world number 7 or 8 as well. So I've gone Joe Cullen.
Well, just so you know, Phil, world number 7 currently is Jose. Just throw that in the mix while you're naming your 10.
If you'd have heard what we had in the press room, you'll Jar understands. I don't agree with it, but I think Ando gets in. I wouldn't have him, but I think he's in. And pick number 10, Fallon Sherrick. I'm also going to say something on the Premier League after Gob's given his.
I think you've gone early on Cullen. I'm not sure he's had
I do as
the
well.
year that he needed. Because
Maybe.
we had conversations he was close last year. We know from conversations that I want in this event, but I don't think he's done enough this year to warrant it over other players.
I think he needs a world final to get it. I don't think the quarters or semi will be enough.
Yeah.
Gob, who are your 10?
Price, Wright, MVG, Wade, Johnny Clayton, Rob Cross, Jose de Souza, Dimitri Vandenberg. Those 8 are in. Jose for getting to the final. Dimmy for just ticking every box, like you said. He's young, he's slim in comparison to a lot of other players. He's got that image that people want to push. I'm with you on Gando, Phil. I don't think he should be in.
Yeah.
But unless somebody like Adrian Lewis or Raymond van Barneveld make the world final, Gary goes in because he's still got the songs, the chants, the nostalgia.
Agreed.
Which means the final spot is between... I had 6 names written down, but I actually think it's between 3. I think it's between Fallon. I think it's between Christoph Ratajski. but he needs a very, very good Worlds. And I think it's Ryan Searle. I'm not sure Asper's done enough this year. Don't think Michael Smith has done enough this year. They were in my maybe column. And the other maybe as a massive outsider was Raymond van Barneveld. Searle making a final was big for him, but unless he goes and makes the last 4 here, I don't think it'll be him. Ratajski, I'm going to be honest, I think the fact that Ratajski's English is not great in comparison, and you've already got Jose in the field, works against him.
Dob, I also think on your Barney point, Barney that's removed completely because he wasn't invited to, was it the World Series? As soon as they didn't invite him to that, I thought, well, he's sort of done quite a lot down the pecking order, so it wasn't even in my list just for that reason.
Yeah, but he does love a World Championship and a quarter-final or better for Barney in his first-year return. You think he has won a Pro Tour as well? I know it's not a TV, but yeah, I think somehow Fallon ends up in there. I'm not convinced by it, but I think it happens somehow.
The Fallon thing, what Eddie said this week convinced me even more.
Yeah. And I've got a little bit of an issue with what he said, actually, because all the while I'm just so torn between the PDC spinning the line that it's a meritocracy and if you're good enough, you can turn up, play and do whatever, and then him coming out this year saying he wants a Women's World Championship again. At which point, if you want a Women's World Championship, why are you wildcarding or giving opportunities for the women to play in the Open World Championship? The minute you have a Women's World Championship, the opposite one has to be a men's, not an Open. That's my opinion. The minute you separate the championship by gender or sex, you have to do it all over.
Yeah, no, I agree. But Eddie knows this from boxing. Remember when he signed Katie Taylor? He said this was a one-off. He had no interest in women's boxing. However, the money women's sport generates in advertising because huge companies want to get on board with women's sport, he changed his mind. And then you saw him sign 2, 3, 4, 5 women fighters. They've headlined shows. And I think he sees the same in darts, that maybe he doesn't want to, but that pound note, that dollar sign, is ringing too much.
It may be, but I'm a sportsman romantic. I think it should be all about being there based on ability. And look, sport is the only place that you get fairy tales. I've said that so many times, but they happen naturally. They happen by you letting drama unfold, by players putting themselves into these positions, not by governing bodies, in inverted commas, because the PDC technically aren't one, manufacturing opportunities and situations for this to happen. That loses its gloss.
Right, I've just got a couple of bits. I've got one which I'll do in a minute. 2, I've just looked at what James said, and I've just looked at the numbers. If Cullen doesn't have a good one, I think Michael Smith potentially goes box seat. Because the money he's on now, the section of the draw he's in, he could not easily, but he could potentially leapfrog Dimitri or Gando, Dimitri, and maybe even Jose. Michael Smith is in a very good place in this ranking with the Worlds.
Leapfrogging Gary would be big, but at the same time, well, I suppose the issue is that neither of them have been very complimentary of the PDC in the last year. They're both just as likely to have a pop. Well, they're both just as likely to average 104 as they are. That's the problem with it.
I love Johnny Boy to bits.
A little bit younger.
But
it's genuinely not that bad a point. Getting a little bit younger, putting Smith in there. Yeah. Gary's had his opportunities. If he has a bad tournament here as well, okay, he's defending a final from before, but that AD Lewis, Matt Campbell,
for the draw where Michael Smith was in it, and he's not in a bad spot in the draw either. is that he
I
potentially
mean, would the
runs
final from
into
Gary if Gary doesn't win anything?
yeah, he potentially runs into Johnny Clayton in round 4, but round 4 would give him 35 grand on the cusp. If he defeated Johnny, then the rest are in trouble because he's not defending anything. The other thing as well, what I was going to say, I don't know anything. I'm just surmising. I think there's a twist in the Premier League again as well. I think too many people are saying it needs rehashing or something needs to happen. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a twist on January the 3rd.
Not this year. Not this year.
The only reason I say that, I'm not going to drop it in it, but someone that I know said Sky was still pushing for the contenders.
That's a terrible idea.
I don't know.
I'm not saying.
I don't know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, if they're pushing for something else than other than a flat 10, there must be talks to do something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the contenders have that.
Yeah,
we're fully aware that Eddie will want to
push
as well, and the Premier League is the perfect event to do so in. And to be honest, a contenders would be a guaranteed shot for Fallon Sherrick to be in the Premier League in some capacity for at least one night.
Dob, just on your 10, on your 10, who was your 10th? Does your name 3? Who was your number 10?
I went Fallon.
Fallon. I said it was Fallon all day.
Fallon. Yeah.
No, yours was PB. I didn't get Dobbs because he named Vitosti and Phill.
I think me and PB had the same 10 completely.
No, I had Joe Cullen. You had Jose. We have 9 of the same.
Dob, you had the same 10 as me, I think. I believe.
We had the same
top 4, then Pross, Clayton, Dimmy, Ando, Jose and Sherrick.
Yeah.
Same 10.
Yeah.
So, it just wouldn't surprise me if there was a twist to the Premier League. If they announced some kind of twist.
Eddie's a showman. And the fact that people want to be putting his stamp on it will massively contribute it. But I think that this year might be a little bit too short notice, but then they do run the risk of missing the boat on Fallon. They've already set the weeks, which makes it incredibly difficult to do anything adjustment with the format unless Sky are going to have longer sessions and maybe cut the format of the games. I don't enjoy the second phase. I think the extra 2 legs is a bit of a waste just to fill some extra time. They could have more players still involved in that sort of thing.
This is what I mean. I don't know, but I just feel
Contenders year 1 worked really, really well. Contenders up until lockdown in year 2 worked okay. They were reasonably competitive. You had Fallon pinching a draw. You had Luke Humphries beating Gary Anderson. And the minute it all locked down after Exeter, there was a genuine point could be made that the Contenders could have gone 50% in that campaign. They didn't because the players then they had nothing to play for and whatever. You looked at the likes of Dizvan coming in. They had relatively nice matchups and that sort of thing in that end of that campaign, but they ended up playing in front of no crowd, no home crowd, anything like that. I just don't. If they go Contenders, it should be the next up. There should be something for those guys to play for, not based on location, seeing the same players that have already had the opportunity once or twice, because they're not the next guys off the treadmill. It should be guys that...
I'm not saying it's going to be Contenders, but I just think that if Sky is still looking to do something, there is obvious talk around tweaking it somehow, just from not your straight 10, you play each other to a relegated after halfway.
Yeah.
So if they do that,
if it is a tweak, for me, what I would like to see is either the top 4 meaning something in regards to if you make finals night, you're guaranteed in next year, something like that, or the flip of that. I'm with Dob. I don't like the split off because the relegation actually means nothing. You're not relegated, you just miss.
For me,
or the other end of that is the relegation meaning something. Yeah,
Players
Well,
have to
that's the
fear
other- that's the
relegation.
other-
Relegation. They just earn 25 to 35 grand and don't have to travel for the next 8 weeks so they can get ready for the match play.
Yeah,
So,
but Dob,
right,
if that
right.
relegation
I'm just about to say this how it is. So I'm just about to go in on Jar here. Jar, yes, it's a travelling circus. However, people have got to realise the Premier League pays for the Pro Tour. Without the Premier League, the Pro Tour money isn't there. So yes, it might be a travelling circus and it goes round, but the money the Premier League generates props up everything else. Because with no entry fees and everything like that, the 100 grand per Pro Tour now, 30 Pro Tours, where are you generating that from? So without this travelling circus, your grassroots darts is dead. There's no money in it. So that's another reason why it's important.
I still think it's crap.
But without it,
Yeah.
you don't get 100 grand a Pro Tour.
Yeah. I hate the sketchiness of the qualification and picking players in and whatever else. Jar makes a good point that the World Series does pretty much the same job. We had this discussion the other day. I can't remember what the number was. I'm going to scroll back and find it. About the percentage of number of days that Sky or PDC Darts is on TV and how many of them are actually ranked. I have the numbers. I did the calculations. Based on last year's...
It's about 41%.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous. 41% of number of days that PDC events are on TV for next year will be unranked. That is an awfully high percentage.
But these tournaments generate obscene amount of money.
Yeah.
The ticket sales for the Premier League, the television rights. Arguably, the Premier League creates or is better for a sponsor than the Worlds. The Worlds, don't get me wrong, you get, boom, 2.5 weeks of constant coverage, and it's huge. However, the Premier League is 3 months, or 4 months, or whatever it is, of coverage every week. And when there's not a lot of darts on, those clips always get reused in the week. So in the build-up, you're seeing Premier League stuff. The day after, you're seeing Premier League stuff. Arguably, in terms of marketing and everything like that, the Premier League is bigger than the Worlds.
And I think as well, PB, what's key to it is the Premier League returning to the format we've seen in previous years and not what we've seen last year. I know we're doing the review of last year, we talked about the highlights of the Premier League, but the highlight of the Premier League was the week with fans. However, normally it is that week on week, every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock. That's the thing we look forward to. And the thing I'm looking forward to next year, the Premier League, is more that it's back each week and we've not got these 4 or 5 weeks of games. That adds to it as well for me. I'm a fan of the Premier League, and if the 10 that we've said, I know we've said 9 out of 10 between us, we've agreed on, if it is that sort of Premier League, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, Tommy, the Worlds will always be bigger. I'm not arguing. Yeah, in terms of that, I just think the Premier League in turn just gives you so much.
So the two you get to week number 4, Liam, same thing over and over again, and we're bored.
Yeah, no, Mike, 100%. They never fear relegation because the panic would be that Michael Van Gogh and Gary Anderson, Peter Wright, as an absolute shocker, gets relegated and then can't play next year. That's why it will never happen. 100% with you.
Should or at least bottom spot.
Yeah. Right, I know we're in overtime, but we are still going to take 10 minutes of questions because we never leave the show without question time. I know we knew tonight was going to be a long show. We'll just say there's been an injury down in the corner. They're stretching him off now. The board's just said 10 extra minutes, as it does at Old Trafford normally.
Nah, he's long gone. I don't get that anymore.
So, get your questions in there, everyone. What's that?
I was just doing a Lee impression.
Yeah.
It's fine, we talk about it if you want.
But, well, whilst the questions are coming in, again, just want to thank everyone for their continued support of the Live Lounge across 2021. It's been absolutely, magnificent. We can't wait to bring it in 2022. We're planning a little.
Go on, mate. Go on, sorry.
I was saying, me and God were talking now. We're trying to plan a day or a Zoom call where we work on new backdrops and everything like that to freshen everything up for 2022. We've got the smallest window to get this done between everything, but we're going to try. What are you going to say, Boise?
All I was going to say is, when we're coming into questions, a question that came up early that was very good when we was doing the review was one around Johnny Clayton. Can't remember exactly word for word the question was.
Has he tailed off a little bit?
Has he tailed off a little bit, yeah, towards the back end of this year? So, what a very good year, but has he then tailed off performance-wise going into a tournament that he doesn't usually do very well in?
No, I think he's been. I think he's still there or thereabouts.
I don't think he's tailed off. He's been hit and miss. He's been up and down. Has he won back-to-back televised titles this year? I don't think he has. It's sort of the trend of Johnny Clayton. Wins one, gap, wins another, gap of 3, wins another, gap, wins one,
gap between them all.
3.
It's gap between them all.
Would be, yeah. Gap of 1, gap of 3, gap of 1, gap of 3 would be the World Championship.
Yeah. Charlie says, in 2022, will God witness a 9-darter live on a stream?
Gob says, when we all meet in Leeds at the Premier League next year, you'll witness a boxing match and carry on. And I'm definitely bigger than you. I'm joking, mate.
Jack says, will Max Hopp lose his tour card? For me, based on the current slide, yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
So we need to check the numbers. 59th, yeah, I don't think he's safe and he's not in. Scott Waite's at more of a risk. Do you know what? He might stick it out just.
No, I think next year he loses.
He needs 6 players below him to get above 48 grand. Barney and Schindler should.
I think he loses it next year.
This year, I think he just comes on. I think Scott Waits is on the bubble just when he needs, I think it's 5 players to go above him, and you can pretty much say 3 of them are there. With their first round draw, it'd be a massive upset for that to not happen. But Chris asked, do you know Peter Hudson is reportedly replacing in the Worlds? It was the Spaniard Rodriguez?
No, it's not. No, Gordon Mathers is replacing him. There was some chat on social that there was a third, but nothing's been confirmed.
Yes, my
bad. Where is it? Where did Manita says? Phill and crew, with the current top 32, who do you think will move up and down? Good question. So, top 32.
One for me moving up, and I only see him getting better and better, and getting his first TV title next year, is Twist Dolby. I can see him being in the top 16 by this time next year, if not a little bit higher.
I actually like the group just outside of the top 32 or around that 32 mark, that Heta, Dobie, Rids, Ross Smith, Ryan Joyce, Kim, Hybrex, AD Lewis little group. I think they've all got big years ahead of them next year. Can see them moving up. Mensur Suljovic, depends how much he commits to the tour. Ian White, Devon Peterson, they're all in a little group that I can see going the opposite direction. Glenn Dorrance in there, obviously. Simon Whitlock. could go either way. I think Daryl Gurney could go either way at the moment as well. He's been putting in the hours. You can see that in his game, but he seems to be a very good result away from kicking on, or a very bad result from actually it going terribly wrong for him again. So, there's that little pivot, I think, between 20 and 38, where there seems to be, they're just all going to swap places and flip, I think.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's quite tight and quite close in there. Every time you think Vincent's going to slip, he finds a run. But in turn, Devon's defending an absolute king's ransom in 2022. I fear for the African Warrior at the moment.
Yeah.
And also Ian White.
Yeah.
I've seen
that
nothing to suggest
that Whitlock, Devon, White 4 is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Someone asked earlier as well, I can't remember who it was, but I just remember now, the Nathan Aspinall injury. So we're just going off what we saw on social media that during his exhibitions in Scotland, I think it was last weekend, the wrist was very heavily taped and strapped in all the pictures on social media, which for me, you're only strapping it for one reason. There's an issue.
Yes.
So we don't know what it is. Just on the pictures that we've seen suggests that there is some kind of wrist arm injury for Nathan Aspinall at the moment. That's
one I've seen. All I was going to say is one that we're talking about and we're looking forward to next year. Perfect question for me from Tommy is talking about the World Seniors, as we haven't touched upon it this year, looking forward to next year. But World Seniors, who's your favourite for the World Seniors?
Martin Adams.
It's hard to disagree because of how well he played, but his name just left my head. Qualified second day, Dob.
Kevin Vaness.
Kevin Vaness, yeah. So his name just a bit left my head. Kevin Vaness is one for me who's certainly in that mix.
Dad, it's the normal 4 referees: George, Kirk, Hugh, and Russ.
I think Richie Burnett, by the way.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with Burnett.
I really do like the look of Burnett. He's so solid.
My only worry is why I haven't said him is he could go and get a tour card.
Yes, and I think there's a couple in this field that could potentially do the same. I don't think Kevin Painter's going to go back to Q School. I think he's pretty set on playing in this. But your likes of Robert Thornton in particular, Kevin Vaness, they're going to be at Q School.
And let's be honest, we've not mentioned him because it's the obvious name, but he's still going to be up there, Phill Taylor. If not in the mix.
We literally released an interview with him. He says he's not ready. And the thing is, he said he wasn't ready 6 months ago. And if Phill Taylor hasn't corrected that in 6 months, there's an issue.
My worry is competitive play. It's all right finding it on the practice board, but a lot of these players are going to have regular match practice under their belt heading into the seniors. Even Keith Deller is going back and playing Super League at the moment to get match practice.
Keith Deller is putting a lot of hours in, by the way.
And that worries me.
He is like my biggest friend on social media at the minute, trying to put some content out for World Seniors because he is everywhere.
Oh, he did a 4-hour practice session with Ryan Meikle the other day. And he's back playing local comps. And that's my worry for Phill, is he might find it between now and February on a practice board, but no competitive match practice is a worry.
Yeah. What sort of averages do you think we'll get at the World Seniors? A lot of the invited players have been off TV for a while. I had this conversation with Jason France at the qualifier. I think we're going to get somewhere between mid-80s and mid-90s for the most part.
with the odd 100, with the odd flash
Yeah,
from Burnett or something like that.
We definitely might get the odd performance that is exceptional. We will almost certainly get the odd player that drops below the 80 mark. I think we'll have a couple of them at some point. But I think for the most part, it will be mid 80s to mid 90s. I genuinely think it'll be a reasonable standard.
Yeah. Also, Big Johnny says Aspinall's got tennis elbow. Was up in Scotland. If he's got tennis elbow, he's got a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Phone Gezi. He'll get it fixed for him.
Gob, do you want to end the poll as well?
Literally about to do that. What a good way to wrap. Let me just out. Literally about to do that.
Happy days.
And your winner, player of the year, Johnny Clayton.
In his best Johnny Mac impression.
I'm better looking than Johnny Mac. Just.
Right, everyone. We are deep into Fergie time. We are going to sign off for now. It has been an absolute pleasure bringing you the Live Lounge in 2021. Myself, Gob, Boise, Jar, it's been an absolute pleasure. The Live Lounge will return after the World Championships, Monday night, 8 p.m. The time isn't going to change. Make sure you join us. We have got everything planned, or planning for Q School and everything like that. We are going to try and bring you everything we possibly can. We are going to be stretched to the absolute limit, but we'll get there somehow. Between now and the second week in February, you are going to be sick of the sight of us. That is for sure. But thank you very much for your continued support. Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Enjoy time with family, friends, and loved ones. We have been Online Darts. Like I said, myself, Gob, Boise, signing off the year in 2021. Thank you all very, very much, and we will see you in 2022.